Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is Marilyn with House Rocketeer Design. Thanks for tuning in today. I will be demonstrating making a dress with this beautiful satin print fabric. I've used it before when I did a jacket, a blazer jacket, and a pair of shorts. I don't know if I've modeled it on this channel, but I will probably do a series to show my makes with this fabric. So I don't remember where I purchased it, but it does look like it's a print that was from Joann, so it may have been from a secondhand fabric store. I was able to get several yards of this, and I just bought the entire thing. So what I have to use to make this dress, of course, will be my own pattern. It's a princess theme dress, and I will show you the pieces that I'll be using for this project. Keep watching. So what I'm going to need, I have piece one is my center front. I have side front, I have center back, I have side back, and I have both of my facing pieces. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. We're all self-drafted by yours truly. I'm gonna lay this out on my fabric pieces on the wrong sides of the fabric. And once that's done, I'll pin everything down, cut it out, and I will meet you back at my design table. Okay, here I have all of the pieces already cut out for the princess seam dress. I have the center front, I have 2 of those cut. I've pinned that to the side front. You want to make sure that you've marked all of your notches, or you're going to make the little slits in the fabric within that seam allowance. And I'm going to stitch this up. I'm going to do the same thing for the opposite side, stitching the one piece of the center front to the side front. And we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I have all of the pieces cut out for the princess seam dress, and I have center front, one piece, pin to the side front. And I'm going to stitch at my regular 1/2 of an inch seam allowance that the pattern calls for. Again, if you missed the beginning of the video, this was actually my own pattern. I'm gonna back stitch and follow my 1/2 inch seam allowance. All the way to the end. Okay, so here I have both center fronts sewn to both center backs. I put it on the dress form just to kind of check the fit. I have everything basted, and I have not, of course, done the buttons yet, but I did fold in the front to assess what that seam allowance would look like as well. So I'm pretty pleased. So the next thing I'm gonna do is move on to the center back and do the same thing, and I'm going to stitch each of the side backs to the center back, and I will work on the facing after that and put it together. Pretty straightforward, guys. Okay, so I moved on to the back. So I have the center back piece, which was cut on the fold, and I have one of the side backs already pinned all the way down. You can see that I've finished my fisheye dart, and I did that on the front as well as both side backs. And when you're done with that, you're going to stitch the second side back to the other side of the center back. All of that done at the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we'll work on that. Okay guys, so this is the front. I have my center front connected to each of the side fronts, and everything is just basted, and it's just pinned to the dress form, where this is an A-line. It's not a straight skirt. And this is the back. I have the center back connected to each of the side backs. And there are 2 darts in the back and 2 darts in the front as well. So I will continue with the facings, and so actually I will stitch this together and then stitch the facings. I have a front facing piece that's going to attach to the inner surface of the center front, and I also have a back facing. This dress will not be lined, so I did go ahead to do the facings so that I could clean finish my necklines and the inner portions of the center front as well as the back neckline. I do have a large placket in front for several buttons. I think I have anywhere from 10 to 12 buttons, and I will work on those at the very end. I'm not quite sure yet what I want to do with the armholes. I sometimes do a bias finish. Sometimes I do self fabric or may just match the material. But my facing, I have two different ones. Sometimes I'm not certain what I want to do since this is a new design, but I may just go ahead and finish those armholes with the additional front facing that I have cut as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do next again is work on the front facing and the back facing, and I will show you what those pieces look like. This is the back facing, this piece here, and this was actually cut on the fold. And I also have the center front facing as well. Okay, so work on that next, guys. Okay guys, so I have moved over to the ironing board, and I have my inner facing piece cut for the center front. And what I'm going to do is just press my inner facing to the wrong side of the front facing piece, and do the same thing to the back facing piece. And of course, this is to just reinforce this section of the placket for your buttons and to give a little form to the front portion of the dress design. All right, so once that's done, we have one fully interfaced front section. And you're going to do the same thing for the other part as well as for the back facing. Okay, so what we have here are our two front facing pieces and our one back facing piece. You're going to trim all of the additional allowances that you see. Not allowances, the additional pieces of interfacing. If you have any, you want that to be as flush as possible so your seams are not so bulky. And then we're going to attach the back facing to the front facing. And I love pins. I'm not using my industrial machine for this. I'm actually using my vintage Singer Rocketeer to sew this dress. And if you missed my demonstration on the channel, I demonstrated making ruffles with the Rocketeer. But it was built at the height of the space age, I believe around 1961. And it was Singer's one of the last, or the last machine with all metal parts. So it's very heavy duty. And I'm actually using it as a backup because my computerized Juki is actually being serviced. So once you have the back facing attached to the front facing at the seams, you're going to stitch at a 1/2 inch seam allowance at each of these, and we're going to attach right sides together to the front and back face fabric. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the center back attached to each of the side back pieces and the center fronts attached to the side fronts, and I have them pinned at the side seams. So what I'm going to do now is stitch down each of the side seams, and then we'll be moving on to attaching the facings to the front and to the back. Okay, here, so I'm going to stitch the side seams on both sides, front to back, at the sides, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're going to take that all the way to the end. Okay, so at this point you should have both side seams stitched front to back as well as both shoulder seams stitched front to back. as well. You want to make sure that your printed seams are lined up pretty well, even though this is a nice printed fabric. You know, it's not like it's just a solid. You just want to make sure that they do match here at your shoulder seams. At this point, I will probably test for fit. If it's supposed to be semi-fitted in the waist due to the darts and the fisheye darts, and then an A-line, I'm probably going to make a belt to go with it. So I'm going to check for fit, and then we'll be working on the facings for the front and the back. Okay, so what I have here in front of me are the facing pieces. This is the front facing attached to the center front. This is the back facing attached to the center back. And this is the other one of two of the front facing attached to the center front. And I'm going to stitch that all around at the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, here, so I am completely done with putting the dress together for the most part. I'm just serging the seams just to do a clean finish. And I'm using my Juki MO654 DE serger machine to do that. Just want to be real careful going around these seams that you've moved your fabric from underneath.